What is up, Piss Flaps? JJ back here from Pure Bets, talking some MLB live Wednesday, August the 26th. Well, for Wednesday, August 26th. I'm going to start with touching on some baseball thus far, like betting wise, now that we're about halfway through, and some betting markets to target for the second half, right? Now, not sure if people just like forgot entrance protocol or if you're all like hooked up on acid. But there are rules to these videos and, coming in upon entrance, and I'm not really seeing anybody follow protocol. Also, I know what you might be thinking, right? What's a dude like you drinking on a Tuesday evening in North Jersey? I'll tell you what, high quality H2O dipshits. Only the highest quality tap water makes its way through this body. All right, so this video, it's been a while since I've gone solo, right? So look, I'm excited to be back now. For this vid, I'm going to let you know where I kind of stand on Major League Baseball to date, again, betting-wise, what we can look forward to moving forward during the backstretch of this season. And I'll talk on some games tomorrow, too. I'll give out one bet as well for tomorrow. So look, get your dicks out of your hands for 30 minutes, and let's focus on some bases. What's up, Willie, Chwadi, James? Now, one thing I want to touch on briefly. So I think when you talk futures markets coming into a year, right? Like the fun and not so fun part about future bets, right, is that they could almost be cashed or lost by the middle of the season, right? So as we kind of look at the standings thus far, Yankees and Rays, kind of what we expected, right? Them kind of duking it out for first place. Toronto, I think a lot of people assume Toronto's bats would kind of keep them alive. Believe it or not, they've kind of been just as good pitching as they've been hitting. They're kind of like in the middle of the league in both of those areas. Game above 500, though. Baltimore's been an interesting surprise, to say the least, with their bats. And look, Boston has been such a big surprise in a negative way. I think a lot of people saw regression coming for the Sox. I don't know if they saw it at this extent, though. 31% winning percentage just ain't going to cut it for them. You could argue they're almost hanging up the cleats already. AL Central, Twins, I think, are where we all thought they would be. Winning percentage a bit above where we would have expected, though. White Sox, what a pleasant surprise. I mean, these dudes can just straight mash, especially against lefties, just filled with power right-handed bats. Cleveland's been good year for them so far, 17-12, nothing crazy, right? No need to overreact in a positive way or a negative way, but man, this team can pitch. One of the best all-around pitching staffs in baseball when you include the bullpen, and they're missing two of their dudes too because they can't keep their dicks out of their pants. Detroit, I think, kind of where we figured they would be along with Kansas City. Both of them have been poor to start. Now, Oakland, if we head over to the AL West, has been a team that I think a lot of sports bettors have been on. I feel like Oakland's just been taking a lot of money this year. I wouldn't call it sharp square or anything like that, but they've just been taking a lot of money. Great team all around. I mean, tops in the leagues in runs scored. Overall, very good runs against as well. The Astros, kind of just chugging along. The Astros had a nice little 8-game winning streak there for a bit, where they weren't getting any hype about it. Kind of found their bats a bit recently. So interested to see how they kind of finish off this season. They are officially 30 games done with their way. Who else in the AL West here? So Seattle, I think where people thought they would be. Now the Angels, this is interesting. I mean, 9 wins, giving up 180 runs. That might be most in baseball. Just awful pitching all around. Between their bullpen, their starters. Can't imagine anything happens good for the Angels for the rest of the season. Now, NL East, the Braves kind of trying to pull away. The Miami Marlins have been a fun surprise since their little stripper days. New York Mets, Nats, Philly. Philly's been a surprise in a negative way. I mean, who would have figured they'd be this poor to start? But maybe they bounce back. They're not like in a hole, but they are kind of at a point where they need to start really piling on some wins. Cubs leading the NL Central. Which some would have thought. The big thing with the NL Central has been how poor the Reds have been, kind of like your preseason darling for a lot of bettors. Interested to see if they kind of figure it out the second half of the way. And if they kind of get rolling, do you kind of just continue to bet them during a streak? Because, I know a lot of sports bettors love them coming into the year. Dodgers, kind of where we thought they would be, right? 22-8. They've already actually exceeded a already bullish market. So like somebody might say, oh, well, we expected the Dodgers to be this good. No. No one expected them to be 73% win percentage good. 22-8 is a strong record. Hard to say if they'll sustain it, but they've been great. I mean, the Padres, a nice little pleasant surprise with my boy, Fernando Tatis. I know, a lot of you guys give me slack for blowing Bryson DeChambeau in golf. But I tell you what, Fernando Tatis Jr., he's up there in my gargle list. Love the kid. I think he's a tremendous talent. And I continue to say 40-40s nearly in this kid's future. Rockies were a pleasant surprise there for a little bit, but they've kind of tailed off. Giants have been great with the sticks, just awful pitching. So interested to see if that kind of fizzles at the end of the year. Remember, a 30-game sample here is usually like 1/6 of the year-ish. Now you're looking at a 30-game sample being half the season, right? So it is an overall still small sample, nothing to overreact about, but you are still seeing betting markets overreact from time to time on various different aspects day to day. Now, Arizona Diamondbacks, another little preseason darling, not exactly where they'd want to be right now either. But, again, a lot of time for some of these teams to get themselves out of a hole. So interested to see if that kind of happens. Now, in regards to betting markets moving forward, what I will say is when a season this short, right, you're going to have situations where teams are going to be literally hanging it up in the next 10 to 15 games. I mean, some teams are drawn dead. Like the Red Sox are nearly drawing dead to make the playoffs. So you figure 10 games from now, where's any motivation on the Red Sox going to be? Or even like a team like the Pirates, I mean, ultimately people expected the Pirates to be bad, but where's this team's motivation going to be in 10 games if they're 10-20, right? So, I'm not somebody who likes to bet run lines. Okay. You guys know, and especially home team run lines where you lose that last at bat, not my thing by any means, but man, there'll be some juicy spots to bet run lines. And I do think you're going to start seeing some inflated lines later, which I think you can take advantage of early. So as a team like the Pirates, just for example, right? 10 games from now, they might be 10-20, maybe a little worse, maybe a little better. This team, at least motivation-wise, maybe mentally, kind of hung it up, right? Ultimately, they have no chance to make the playoffs. Maybe they'll call up some guys, some young kids. But ultimately, this would be a team to just target run line. I don't want to say every day, but I mean, until the markets are going to over-adjust, because you're going to have a good 20-game stretch where this team has no chance to make the playoffs. And where is their motivation going to be, right? So for me, targeting spots like that, Pirates, Red Sox, where they're going to play a team like they're playing the White Sox now, but the White Sox now, the market's kind of seeing, right? Like you saw me target the White Sox a bit last week, but you're not seeing me target them this week. Why? It's not because they can't win. It's just because now they're becoming a market sensation, right? Everybody now's talking about the White Sox bats, how good they are. Now that they were the headline on ESPN, everybody's talking about the White Sox now. I want no part of it from a betting standpoint. The market's just kind of over adjusted. Now you're seeing these lines against the Pirates that are minus like 240, which is just wild, right? Ultimately, these are the types of things you need to be taking into consideration when you're betting baseball. I mean, for that matter, betting any sport, right? It's a marketplace, okay? Zig when others zag, okay? If everywhere you go, everybody is talking about Team A, you definitely don't want to be betting Team A, not because Team A is going to lose, but because Team A's numbers are just not going to make sense for you to be betting, even in a short-term, long-term, however you want to call it. But moving forward down the backstretch of this year, run lines, specifically home teams, road teams, I don't even think it matters. I think you could target home teams just because you get a little better price knowing that you could lose that at bat. And again, realize who this is coming from. Like, I'm so anti-run lines ever, but man, in this year, it'll make a lot of sense, especially with teams that are kind of drawn dead, that have no chance to make the playoffs for a good 15 to 20 game stretch. Just something worth noting. And now I also want you guys to consider, like I feel like a lot of people will look at like a slate, right, betting lines, and not do any prior research, right? Just look at numbers on a sheet, right, prices, and be like, yep, I want to bet, this team minus 180, this team minus 170. You're not even taking into consideration how hot or cold the team is, right? Or like if the price makes sense. I've been seeing this often, like sports books are hanging up minus 180s, minus 200s on teams that have lost like 3 or 4 straight. Why would you ever target teams that are playing cold baseball and lay 2-1 odds on there? Like, why would you? I mean, like, I get it. Like, there might be a party that looks at that line and goes, that doesn't make sense. Somebody must know something. I'll just lay 2-1. No. Baseball is streaky. Okay. If a team is hitting, a team is going to keep hitting. Okay. Don't just assume that trend's going to buck. And the same thing with pitching. Like you'll see this too, where like a team has like 3 or 4 starters throwing really well, right? Or they're good starters. Maybe they're throwing really well. And then this 4th game comes, right? And it's a bad arm, right? But this team's won like 7 straight. And that now they throw out a bad arm. And then you're like, oh, this is the spot. Let's target this guy. Like, like winning is contagious. Okay. And it's not a surprise when you see a team with 3 or 4 good pitchers and then they throw up a day 5 starter or whatever. And the line is much lower because the starter sucks. And all of a sudden that starter goes 5-6 innings, only gives up 1 earned. And you're like, what the hell? This guy's terrible. Why? You know what? It's a clubhouse thing. Okay. And you're going to see this late. You're going to see teams make runs late at the playoffs. This whole league is pretty much wide open right now. For the most part. Now, granted, there are some divisions which almost look practically won already. The Dodgers have themselves quite a lead, but the Padres are pretty close to them. And look, I mean, like James mentions the Tribe, like this team's pitching has been incredible. If they could only just find their bats, and this isn't like an anemic lineup. This is a good lineup. So I'm interested to see how much they really can, push forward during the backstretch of this year, if they can catch the Twins and kind of move past them. Obviously, they got a big series now against them. But I think a lot of what we've seen this year has kind of been what's been expected to date. I don't think anything like wild or crazy has happened outside of the fact of like maybe some teams where you're like, you know what? I expected the Angels to be bad. I didn't really expect them to be this bad, especially when you have Trout, Rendon, and Ohtani. Now, Trout missed a few games. Rendon missed a few games. And obviously, they can't use Ohtani to pitch. I'm not sure how much you really factored that in anyway. But just something to consider. Now, other markets moving forward to bet-wise, I'm going to be interested to see how teams really play this out the backstretch. Because I think a lot of us coming into the year expected managers to have like quick triggers on pulling starters if pitchers are struggling. They really haven't, right? They've kind of let starters, at least certain, like I'll call them average or mediocre starters, kind of hang in there and get themselves out of jams. You're starting to see things kind of like, I'll call them like normalize in MLB at this point. Maybe that was even about a week or two ago where, you're getting your normal starters into the 5th or 6th inning, and then you're going to that bullpen guy for, a few holds and then the save. You also did have a stretch there where overs were getting absolutely smashed and the odds makers weren't really adjusting to it. Now they've adjusted to it. Now think about it. Like how often now you're not seeing too many lines now under 8, right? You were seeing it pretty often in the beginning. Now you're not seeing much at all. Like if you're seeing a line under 8 right now, why? It's probably because you either have like a guy like DeGrom going or, a guy like Scherzer going, but ultimately you're seeing a lot higher totals now, obviously with DHs on both sides, warm air, just kind of makes sense. And now these bullpens have really been blowing up games. It's kind of been remnants of the KBO a bit, right? Like, you feel so great about your bets. And even me, like I've transitioned to a lot of first 5 bets. I've made a lot more first 5 bets than I've made all year. Like I personally like making full game bets more just because I feel like over the course of 9 innings, I have a better overall handicap on 9 innings versus what I can do in 5. And, a little more variance in 5 innings, unless you truly love a starter in a specific spot. But this year, in particular, I'm very heavy on first 5s. I think the bullpens have been really a disaster on many teams, specifically like the Giants and Angels. Like there is no lead comfortable. Would the Giants blow back-to-back 4-run 9th inning leads? So something to consider. Don't be afraid to target more first 5s. And I know a lot of books don't offer them right until like sometimes the morning or sometimes even early afternoon. And even player props, right? Like I don't really ever bet player props. I mean, I bet a few here and there. And I barely ever give any out. Like I'll do some on the Sunday Night Baseball stuff, but outside of that, I'm not really a prop guy anyway. But like target props, like some of these props, I've seen the markets, like they've been so low, like egregiously low on like strikeout props and like hit props. Take advantage where you can. Again, a market hole is a market hole. There's no need to try to nitpick what you think is favorable or not, right? And especially down the stretch here, like you want to start projecting, like especially I don't know if you have how many guys have future bets or not. But maybe start leveraging, bets you're going to make to either help shore up cash on those futures, right? Like if you bet a future and your team is looking real good right now, like if you happen to bet over Dodgers future, right? And now you're sitting pretty now. I mean, why not bet like the only team that can really catch them right now would probably be the Padres. Why not bet Padres if you can live bet the Padres over their season total, backwards for half a unit. The Padres still could go over their season total, right? But you could actually win both bets. You could, because the only chance you have to lose the Dodgers bet of winning their division or maybe making the playoffs, whatever bet you had. Just giving you an example. Bet the team underneath them to go over their season total at this point or whatever that season total is now, because that's the only team that can catch the Dodgers. Just something to consider when you're betting futures. You want to have a few different tickets in your hand that can cash late. It's like anything else, like golf, NFL, whatever. It's all the same markets, right? And whatever you guys do not Do not buy when everybody else is buying and sell when everybody else is selling. This is a betting marketplace, okay? This is not fantasy sports. You want to make sure that you are not acting like a bull in a bull market and acting like a bear in a bear market. You want to be doing the exact opposite because that's where value pops up, right? And it's no different with the back half of this season. Now, granted, I touched on like motivation, and I touched on, certain things I expect to see. And you'll see me target these in bets I make, especially over these next 10 to 15 days, where teams that I believe that are just going to check out, I'm going to try to target them right before the market thinks they've checked out, okay? Because that's when there's going to be value, right? There's not going to be value on the Pirates when they're 50 games into the season, and now teams that are playing them, the lines are all like minus 300 because this team doesn't even want to win games anymore. The time to find value on them would be probably 5 to 10 games from now, a team like that. And again, it depends who they're playing, but these are all things you have to weigh when you're deciding on, hey, if I want to bet this, if I want to bet that, instead of just like looking at sheets every day and looking at numbers and just kind of going off your eye test or your recency bias and making bets, try to look at things from all angles, right? Like baseball is a sport you can look at from a ton of different panes of glass, right? Like you could look at a game where you have a team that's won 7 or 8 in a row and now is going up against a team that's lost 3 or 4 in a row, but against a team that's lost 3 or 4 in a row, they're throwing out an ace, right? And now you look at the line and the team that's won 8 in a row or 7 in a row, whatever, is an underdog against this team's ace, right? So you might be like, oh, somebody knows something, or I don't want to target this because, I don't ever want to bet against said ace. But why not? I mean, why not? Because your objective here, and specifically in baseball, is to consistently ride streaks. I mean, in any form, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether the streak is a losing one or a winning one. Ride it in that direction, right? Because ultimately, you're going to find yourself tilting so much when you're betting, assuming streaks buck, or assuming a team that's not hitting is going to start hitting, or assuming a pitcher that hasn't thrown well is going to throw well. And look, obviously leverage stats like Sierra, FIP, XFIP, obviously things like line drive rate, if you want to project, hitter outcomes, or, hard hit contact rate for pitchers. Obviously WOBA is a popular stat for hitters. But ultimately all these things, like, take it all as a whole. Okay. If a team if you're just looking at box scores at the actual run scored, it's never going to get you where you want to actually be. Okay. You're going to actually have to dig. If you're not watching baseball, you're going to actually have to dig behind the curtains at certain numbers, like advanced pitching stats, advanced hitter stats. Okay. These are all numbers that will project the future for you. You see all the time, guy with a 1.5 ERA, got a Sierra of 5. And, at some point the dude's going to get shelled. Okay. It's going to happen. A pitcher cannot sustain that amount of, that much amount of hard contact and just continue to keep an ERA, under 2 or under 3. You've had some interesting starts to the year hitting wise too, right? Charlie Blackmon over 400. How long can he sustain in that neighborhood? But it's been fun, right? It's been a fun season overall to start, and I'm glad that it's kind of normalizing a bit. And look, COVID had its concerns early on, but ultimately it's been a fun season to date, with no true complaints from me on any matter for that. Now, Giancarlo, any live betting tips for MLB? So the one major tip I like to give is to never, ever, ever make a live wager in the middle of an inning. I know that some people might have a different perspective there. My thing is if you're making a bet in the middle of an inning, you're doing it because you either A, assume runs are going to be scored after a hit or base hit, which number one means you've already gotten a bad line. Okay, or a bad number, right? Because maybe a guy's on first or second, all right, and now you're like, okay, well now I think there's going to be runs scored, so I'm going to bet over, and you've already got a bad number versus what the inning started at. Or maybe a runner's on first and second, and now you're thinking the other angle. Maybe you're like, oh, you know what? I'm going to bet that there's not going to be a run scored, and then you get a bloop single, and that blows that whole idea up, right? Bet in the middle of innings, okay? Inning ends. That's when you make a bet. Comparison I give you in tennis, I'm never going to make a live tennis bet in the middle of a service game, right? I mean, what? Because the thing could swing in either direction mid-game. You won't know. I don't want to make a bet in the middle of an inning with the hopes that I get the 1 out I need or the 2 outs I need. Sure, it could work on a small sample, but leverage live betting in between innings, once whether it's top, bottom, whatever, right? And then you could even make the argument, right? Like Giancarlo, if you bet a home team, if you want to bet a home team, right? And you're like, or you know what? Maybe a better example is a road team. You want to bet a road team, right? And they're gonna bat first. Maybe instead of betting them, maybe bet a half unit on them before the game starts, right? And then the game starts, and then if they don't score, okay, in that top half, then bet the other half unit on them again, because now you'll get a much better price, right? They didn't score in the top half of the inning. The other bottom half team could score. You'll probably get a price that's about 30, maybe 20 to 30 cents better, right? Maybe even better. Depends on the actual matchup, the line, whatever. But you'll probably get a line that's about 20 to 30 cents better, at least. So, and if they score, you already have your half run. I mean, you already have, your half unit in, right? So that's just something I like to do on a few different occasions. So a half unit here, and because ultimately, if the half unit works out, great. And if they ever trail again, right, where that line opens back up, you can bet the rest of the half unit to make it a full unit. Just something, like I said, something I like to do, and something I never do is bet in between innings. I think you're just begging yourself to tilt away, right? Now, tomorrow's slate, pretty interesting one. I know that you got the few early games, or at least a few games before 7, specifically the White Sox game. Now, the White Sox is an interesting scenario here because, again, man, you want to talk about two markets colliding, okay? No one wants to bet the Pirates right now. No one wants any piece of the Pirates right now, okay? And for obvious reasons, right? And everybody right now wants to jump on the White Sox bandwagon because they're hitting, right? So you look at a line like this, and you're laying 230 with Dallas Keuchel. Look, Dallas Keuchel's a good starter. He's, he had a great year a few years back, not near what he once was. Man, laying 240 with Keuchel. This is what I mean when I say markets collide, okay? You could make the argument that like a run line bet with the Pirates might make a lot of sense first half. But here's the thing. The White Sox are so hot right now, at least with their sticks, that it's hard to justify anybody betting the Pirates. So it's not like I'd say I'd bet the Pirates with confidence tomorrow at run line at that price. No, but the line should not be what it is. It shouldn't be 230. And it might get even worse. I mean, prior to game, it's an early start. A lot of people might just start locking that thing into parlays, minus 250, minus 255. I don't want any piece of that game tomorrow. And again, Trevor Williams hasn't been bad. He's not a bad pitcher. Maybe surface might be a little worse than what's actually behind the curtains. But to me, it's that's the spot I want no part of at that price. And again, when I say markets collide, you have no one who wants to bet the Pirates, and you have everyone who wants to bet the White Sox right now. You're getting the White Sox at probably the worst price possible tomorrow. No part from me there. Now, the Philly Nats game is a game actually I'm gonna target here. So obviously Patrick Corbin, Aaron Nola, it's gonna be a good pitching matchup, at least on paper, right? Now Corbin got minorly roughed up a bit in his last few starts. I think we get a better showing from him here, though, right? I think we get the game tonight that was a little postponed. You keep these guys waiting around for a few extra hours, and this game will end up finishing hopefully tonight. And then tomorrow, obviously, they both have to go against. I guess what you could argue is both aces for each staff. Obviously, if you're still into Scherzer being the best pitcher on the Nats, he definitely is. One of the best pitchers in baseball. But Corbin coming into this year has been a very under talked about pitcher. And obviously he's been a bit reeled up recently, but ultimately Scherzer's still the best guy on this staff. But look, Corbin is definitely not somebody to be. Corbin is definitely an underrated arm, specifically in Washington, and I think that this line here at 9 is probably where mathematically it should be. You get a warm ballpark in Washington, two teams with good bats. But man, first 5 under at 5, it'll be the number will be 5 for you, unless this thing drops to 8.5 before tomorrow morning. Man, a first 5 under 5 would make a lot of sense. You'll probably get to like minus 115-ish. That'll be the play I'm on tomorrow. So definitely a spot worth targeting. I know that some of you guys obviously may struggle to get first 5s overnight or late at night anyway. You might have to wait for tomorrow. By the time tomorrow comes, it might be 4.5. Just know I don't love 4.5. You'll probably get that. If you can get that dog money, maybe. But 5 would be the target. 5 like minus 115, which would be what the line should be based on this full game line right now, or full game total. You just catch 2 good arms in a good spot here. Feels like a math line here for this ballpark in the heat. I'll happily take that under first 5 there. Now, Boston, Toronto got an undecided pitcher going against Nathan Eovaldi in the first game, and then they got a doubleheader, or at least the times are wrong anyway. Baltimore, Tampa Bay. Oh, no, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Sorry, guys. So Baltimore, Tampa Bay, another game, undecided pitchers. Now, Minnesota, Cleveland, I guess Clevenger's coming back tomorrow versus Berrios. That should be interesting. Berrios always seems to struggle on the road, though. You got to lay 130 there. But how do you really trust Clevenger coming off that start, right? Like that can't be fun. At least making that as a target for you tomorrow. I know it's a dog price and you might get a great Clevenger, but how do you know what version of him you're going to get? So kind of not a spot I'd really love. I'd probably debate the over, to be honest. I mean, I know it's 8.5, which might feel big with these two arms going, but if we can assume Clevenger, we might not get the best Clevenger tomorrow. And Berrios just always seems to struggle on the road. I wouldn't want to target and here's the thing, these two teams have good bullpens too. So maybe you could argue first 5 instead. It would be 4.5. Not a spot I love, but that would be at least where my head's at. Now, Lester for the Cubs going against Fulmer on the Tigers. Now, Lester was a big target of mine in his last start against the White Sox. He'll get a little bit of a easier lineup here with Detroit, right? Detroit still got some decent righties, but again, this team is not very good at putting together runs or consistent hits. But you're talking laying -150 with the Cubs with Lester on the hill. Definitely not a spot I'd love. 9.5, though, that's a pretty big number for this park. But if you assume the Cubs are going to get some runs across facing Fulmer, and the Tigers probably squeeze a few off Lester, the line probably makes sense. Not a spot in any regard on all angles of that game. Now we got Hernandez going for the Marlins versus DeGrom for the Mets. Like anytime DeGrom starts at home against the Marlins, obviously you're going to assume line's going to be in the 200s, right? Mid 200s. So, I mean, ultimately this line will be about 250, 260-ish, maybe up a little down. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm never a fan of laying this price with a pitcher at home. So it's not a spot for me to target. Marlins have been hitting, obviously been a little Jekyll and Hyde, but yeah, not a spot I want any part of. I don't want to. In total, probably 7.5. Or I don't think it'll get to. It'll probably be 7.5 or 7, and no part of the total either. Especially in this day, in this new era of baseball where you have DH on both sides. I don't want any part of that. Sonny Gray and Hauser for Milwaukee going. That's a decent pitching matchup, right? Like 8.5 of a total. You got two teams that are kind of finding sticks a bit. Sonny Gray -130 there seems like a real strong spot actually. But wow, it's always tough to lay $130 here against Milwaukee, especially when you consider all angles. Obviously, that lineup and Yelich is kind of starting to find it again, right? But ultimately, I would probably like this more if you could get Gray at like 115, 130. You would be more or less a lean. But don't love that spot by any means. Should be a good game to watch. Dakota Hudson going up against Kansas City. They don't have the listed starter yet, so I'm not even going to touch that. Allard going for Texas versus Mike Fiers. Now, Fiers has been off to quite a rough start, and Fiers also has been a terrible road pitcher for the past few seasons. Texas kind of found some sticks yesterday or some life yesterday. Not sure how the game's going tonight, but Texas would be a spot I actually wouldn't mind targeting there. You probably could get a better price, though, because, again, the market, I touched on this earlier, the market kind of likes Oakland. But yeah, I mean, maybe Texas first 5 plus half run, you'd probably get that at like -110. That wouldn't be a spot I would mind at all tomorrow. Again, Fiers has just been giving up runs. And we got my boy Walker from Seattle going against Lamet. Lamet's been incredible for the Padres. I think he broke the quality start streak, right? The quality start streak, what was it, 20 games as a rookie? That was him, right? Lamet? I'm not sure if I have that right. But either way, kid's been tremendous. Already taken a few no-hitters into the 5th or 6th this year. But man, what a juicy line, right? -215, really juiced up there. Hard to bet Seattle by any means in this spot, but hard to really lay a 1.5 with San Diego, who have shown some Jekyll and Hyde qualities. And Walker has also shown some bright spots this year. I think Seattle really had a lot of promise for him a few years back. Kind of a shame that it hasn't really panned out that way. But if I was going to have a lean for you in that game, it'd probably be the under at 8.5. Again, Walker's been better than what we've seen prior to this year, and we've seen some bright spots in him here. And Lamet's been great, right? So ultimately, that would be a kind of a spot I would lean for that one. Now, Colorado, Arizona tomorrow, Robbie Ray versus John Gray. These two are all too familiar with each other, or these two teams anyway. Colorado's seen plenty of Robbie Ray, and Arizona's seen plenty of John Gray. Robbie, look, anytime you bet on Robbie Ray, like, expect to sweat. The dude, Zach Gallen was a quality start. Thanks, Willie. Not Lamet. So Robbie Ray just has consistent walk issues. You're going to tilt every time you watch him. start because he's always going to be in jams. Now this year he's having a little less home run prone issues than last year, but he's still walking guys at the same rate. He's still consistently in trouble. These two teams haven't been hitting, which I guess is something, the factor you can look at. I mean, total here 9.5 is a big number. I would probably lean this one under, like under first 5, under for the game. These two teams don't exactly both have great bullpens, so maybe under for first 5. Would just be a lean though. But yeah, I mean, look, like I said, you're going to sweat because ultimately these guys are going to give up some hard contact. There's going to be runners on base. It's going to be a matter of if they can get themselves out of jams for whether or not the under cashes or the over cashes for you, for that matter. Now, tomorrow, last game that we have here, since the Houston game got postponed, Dodgers in San Francisco. So Clayton Kershaw going up against Kevin Gausman. Now, Gausman just seemingly is usually a guy that, like, I think a lot of people always expect to throw decent, huge prospect when he came up years ago. But ultimately, this is a spot where this is a huge line. I mean, 240, man. And like, look, the Giants hit left-handed pitching. So if you're going to talk at least a quick lean, it would probably be in favor of the over. I would anticipate because ultimately at this line, the odds makers are going to assume the Dodgers are going to score about 5 or 6 runs themselves, maybe 5 runs, like a 5-3-ish type of ball game. But man, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at all for the Dodgers to pile up some runs in this spot. And it wouldn't surprise me at all for the Giants to squeeze a few off Kershaw. So it would probably be a lean, would be over for the game. Again, anytime you're betting an over with the Giants involved, you're going to want to bet it for the game because of how bad that bullpen is. So just some considerations there. So I went through the slate pretty quickly there. Ultimately, again, the play I'm on tomorrow, first 5 under Philly and Washington with Corbin and Nola. Just a spot that makes a lot of sense at that number 5. Hopefully you guys can get it. But other than that, look, thank you guys, everybody, for popping in. I'm just looking at just a few questions here. When will the Yankees play again? It does look like, let me see. It does look, I mean, they're slated to play tomorrow. There is a line for the game against Max Fried. Did I somehow skip over that game? I must have skipped over that game. So at least what we're looking at here, it looks like Tanaka's going against Max Fried tomorrow. Again, I can't confirm that 100%. But it does look like that is what's going to play out here. Braves at about minus 120-ish, maybe minus 110. Yeah, expect Yankee money to come in here, right? I think anytime the Yankees are underdogs, you're going to see them take money. But man, Fried's been great. Yankees are coming off a bit of a layoff. Tanaka's had an issue with the home run ball. And the Braves have been hitting, right? I mean, we saw it on Sunday night. Like, they've been hitting. So I wouldn't mind the Braves in that spot at all. I think it probably makes more sense. I wouldn't want you to sit there and price climb, right? Like, I wouldn't want you to sit there and say, oh, take the Braves minus 130. No, but if Yanks money comes in here and you can get the Braves at minus 110, it's probably a good smash spot for them, because I think you have some things built into this line already that are in favor of the Yankees, and I don't know if Atlanta's getting enough love here. But other than that, yeah, I think we've covered all the games. Gave you my best bet for tomorrow. Hopefully you guys can get it. If you cannot, again, I don't love 4.5. But and then Chad mentioned, is there a 65 lifetime for Rump here? Chad, that was for the DFS end. That wasn't for the bets end. But the bets end will never be more than 60 a month anyway, so don't worry about that. But the DFS end, yeah, was 65. Daily Fantasy Sports was 65 for life with Run Pure Sports. But yeah, other than that, I think I touched on. Would you double down on? Oh, he's asking Chwadi a question. Yeah, my dad will have some baseball plays. I'll throw them in the Discord for you guys so you have them. But yeah, he forwards stuff over to me. Other than that, yeah, that's it, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out. Hope you found this preview vid helpful and then some little betting targets moving forward for this season. I'll catch a lot of you in the Discord for tonight while we sweat some of our action there. And other than that, guys, look, good luck to all of us, and stay safe, guys. I'll see you guys on either tomorrow or Thursday. So we'll talk then. Later.